in a hot seat. We're going to talk about different problems. We're going to give opinions, give insights. So, Julia, please share your problem.
So I have this problem with a kid and an adult. I feel like sometimes they're always sometimes they're always unmotivated, and I don't know how to deal with that, because when it's something really serious, like this week he is motivated or she is motivated, they are motivated, but the next class they are not gonna be, and the other they're not gonna be, and then maybe one day they're gonna be again, but they're like always in a big picture always unmotivated. But sometimes I can make them feel like, yes, right now this is the time, I'm really motivated, let's go, let's do it, I'm doing everything great. But usually it's like they're mud, like.
Oh, shit. And when you say they're demotivated, what does that look like? Like in the classes, what does this demotivation look like?
In the class it looks like, when with the girl, she's a kid, is it looks like, oh my god, this class is good, oh my god, I understand, oh my god, and then she's practicing, she's participating, she works, she speaks, she understands what she's listening. And with him is like, this is a really good class, I can understand, but it really happens a lot with him, that there's something that I see this, I understand, this is a great something, but I don't feel like it's matching me. And he's always like that. I don't feel like it's matching me. I feel like I'm the problem. I'm not sure if this works for me. He's always like that. I'm like, dude, what works for you? I need you to tell me, because I'm giving you like a whole lot of options, and nothing is working for you. Like, what do I do?
Oh my goodness. That is a challenging situation. Before I give any insights here, I would love to hear what our fellow teachers here have to say. Have you been going through the situation too? What has worked in your practice or what hasn't? Please feel free. Yes, please, Rebecca.
My family's singing happy birthday right now, so sorry
Oh,
if you
I can't hear
hear
it.
something. All right, so and I think the biggest problem with when we work with adults is motivation, right? Because they don't really study English because they love English, as you always says, Bia. Like as you always say, like they don't love English like we do. They just need English to work. So motivation is the problem. They don't really want to do that. They need to do that. So my strategy right now is try to bring English to their reality as much as possible, so they are able to see English in their routine and understand the purpose. It's not easy. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And I change my strategy all the time with the same student. I just try new things. So for example, I have this student, I was trying the questions with her, and then she was really just answering very direct, not many words, just in a very simple way. But then when I gave some space for her to just talk about her life and about her week, she got so excited. I was like, okay, maybe I just need to listen. And it is working. So sometimes we plan amazing classes, but I think we need to feel the student a little more and see what the student wants in that hour. I could understand that my student wanted to talk. Really, she just wants to talk. And she told me that, like, I feel that I have therapy and English classes at the same place. And I love this. I was, okay. And instead of asking questions about communism or with have you ever something like this, I just asked the questions about her date and about her situation at work and about these kind of things. She wants to talk about this, you know. But this strategy doesn't work to my other students. So you need to understand every single student.
Yeah.
This is what I try to do. And this is the biggest challenge. Because sometimes it seems that you never figure this student out. Like ever. The student has been with you for a year and you go like, oh my God, what's the point of it? I don't get it, you know? So
Yeah.
yes, this is frustrating. It's frustrating sometimes.
It's very, right? Especially when people are giving vague answers. Those dry answers, oh my God, I want to die inside, right? Because sometimes even you're asking about their life or their personal life or whatever, and then they're being vague. I think that happens a lot with teenagers, especially. I don't know. A lot of the teachers that teach teenagers tell me that, oh, my teenagers just one word answers, and then they're it's like, what the fuck do I do? And most times I'm like, tell the person, tell the person, yo, we're here. I'm asking you questions so we can practice English. If you don't really give me more than one word, it's going to be difficult because sometimes we suffer with a problem and we don't share the problem with the student per se, you know? And then I think we need to be very truthful with students and be like, okay, here, I'm hitting a wall. I'm hitting a wall because nothing seems to work with you. And I want to know, what do you really like? What do you really want? What do you want to do? Because it's not only our responsibility, right? If they are paying you, it's because they want to do this, not that they really, really want to do it, like we said, because they just need to survive. And that's why they're learning English, but they're essentially paying you. So they you have their consent, right? Teenagers can talk about the whole society history in 2 words. Fuck them, right? That is so true, Julia. That is so true. Especially Gen Z, they're so good at like TikTok putting things in 5 seconds. It's just like ridiculous. But yes, Julia, what would you gonna say about this?
I was gonna say that first we kind of have to deal with the frustration of dealing with different people and different situations. Every time they're changing, we're always changing. There's also this difference between men and women. Women usually like to talk more about private and personal stuff. Men don't talk about feelings. They don't talk about their day. They usually don't do that. So it's a little bit harder to to have some access with that, to find some connection with men. Well, I think it's a little harder unless you start talking about, I don't know, football or music. They can open up a little better, but what other than that, only being a man. And there is something that I've been doing with my new students that is like a briefing before class. Like, oh, I'm gonna do this personalized this um I don't have the word right now. This very special planning for your class, and I want you to, and I want you to know, what do you want to talk about? What is your vocabulary? Just like the 21 questions you do, something like that, to kind of create this persona and know, how can I do this? And I mean, these classes with Pia and you guys have been teaching me to do those things, like during class take notes about the student, to know what can I do later if I'm missing a point. Let's see what I've noted here about this person, and I can fix it, I don't know, somewhere. But sometimes it's still frustrating. I think that's it, frustrating, and we don't have a lot to do about it, maybe.
That's true. That's true. Especially when, for example, you don't have this identification with teaching a specific group. Like I do think that if you don't like teaching teenagers, you shouldn't teach teenagers. If you don't like teaching men, you shouldn't teach men because that will drain you, right? And that's okay. It's okay to say, I don't like teaching men. It's okay to say, I don't like this kind of public or that kind of public, unless you're being racist, right? Unless you say, I don't like teaching black people. Then we're going to have some problems. But like, if it's a group, a specific group, right, then that it makes sense. And then there's also the fact that sometimes we could ask questions that are maybe more vertical. Because if we ask questions that are very horizontal, maybe they it doesn't go deep enough for the person to really have an answer to give. So if you ask, how was your weekend, is very different than asking, like, what was something strange that happened this weekend, or what was something you ate this weekend? You know, I always find that the more specific I ask a question, the better the person can really give me an answer that will lead to something else. For example, if I ask them, so what did you eat this weekend? Everyone ate something. The teenager cannot tell me nothing. Because if I say, what did you do this weekend? They always say nothing. They always, always, always say nothing. And I'm like, fuck you. You did not do nothing. You were not looking at the ceiling the whole time. So, I'm like, what did you eat? And then we start talking about food, maybe, right? Did you watch anything during this weekend? What did you watch? And then I start pulling in the conversations about stuff like that. So keep it personal. And then when we say we're personalizing things, it doesn't mean we're making classes out of nothing for everyone, right? A different one for everyone. But we're asking things that each person is going to give an answer. Each person is going to give their unique perspective. So, but it's nice for us to think of who do we like to teach, because you're going to have to spend a lot of time with that person, essentially. So you gotta like them, and you gotta be willing to know about their lives. If I'm teaching a person that everything they tell me about their lives, I'm like, then I'm not gonna like teaching them, right? Lise, you had your hand up.
Yeah, about the teenager student. It was
Please.
one of I had one, and one of my first students was a teenager boy, and it was just like everything you guys like Julia said, like two words from the whole history, and I was very frustrated, and I did not have any experience, and then his girlfriend came to class with him, and it didn't change a thing, guys. I was very hopeful, like, you're doing a class with your girlfriend, try to impress her, like in my mind, and it was nothing, and eventually he just stopped doing classes. I charged more. It was like over a year I was with this teenager boy, and I figured I don't like teaching teenagers, like, only, of course, like, as very motivated teenager, but it was very frustrating. It just brought me back all the experience I had. And just like Bia said, come on, like, I'm here, your mom. Sorry, guys, I just go straight forward. I just like, your mom is paying, like your grandma or whatever who was paying, and make it. Do you really want to learn? Like, sorry, guys, I don't have, like, there's a limit, and then, come on, you are wasting my time, your time, like, you know, and then that was my experience. Like, yeah, that was what I was going to add about the this experience with teenagers. Sorry, B, I can't hear you.
Oh, yes, I had muted myself. Okay, so it is scientific that teenagers are fucked up people. Like, when we are kids, our brain activity is just off the charts when we're babies. It's like, it's a speed that we can't even compute. And then we're kids, it's there, it's going. But when we reach 12, cognitive structures start declining, and we have, like, it's called synaptic pruning, and then our brain starts to, like, cut some connections that we don't use anymore, that's like from childhood. So literally, teenagers, they're slower, their like processing is slower than even adults and kids. So they really are, like, it's depressing to talk to a teenager because they're like, seeing, uh-huh, yeah, and they're super slow, but because they are, like, scientifically, their brain is not capable of being so woo, it's hard, people. So that's why I don't teach teens, and I highly admire who does, but, like, it's not my thing. I do have some teenage students, but they are really, like, awesome teenagers that love to talk about politics and the world, and then that's really rewarding, right? So yes, Liz.
but I do have something like to share. Like if I had BS mentorship, I think at that time, I think that would be better, like to deal with this teenager student. I think so because when I start talking to him in Portuguese about everything he liked, then I was just there talking in Portuguese with him. But then if I had now the all the ideas you got, all the insights we share here, then I think it would be better. Now I know better. Thank you,
Ah.
BN guys.
I'm flattered. But it's really about what Rebecca said, right? Putting the real world, putting real life into the person's class. And then it's like impossible for you to, because like if someone brings something random from a book or whatever, you're probably gonna be like, yeah. But if it's your life, you can't be about your life, right? You have to answer. So it's like it prompts you to to participate. So yeah, I get it. But we learn. I'm glad you learned now. So yeah, we're on the road. Right? We're always evolving. Yes, Louisa, please share.
Well, when I worked at a school, I actually worked with this Ensino Fundamental 2, which
Oh.
people usually hate because they are not child, but they are not teenagers yet. And I guess I just loved working with this age because I learned that they're actually children, and we had to play with this. I mean, I turned out to be kind of a bully teacher, but not in a bad way. I mean, I was always make fun of them. Like, I can make fun of you too. You think you're smart, but I am smarter. I can make, I understand what is happening here, and I just love when we had like after being at the class. I mean, I taught, but I also worked at the coordination. So when they fought and whatever, they came to my class, and I had to talk to them, and I loved this kids that they were difficult because I know, as Ben said, they're always going through something, and I really like to play like Morde a Sopra rule. Like you can trust me, you can tell me everything, but that's why we are building a bond here. This bond is like I understand you, but you have to understand me too. And we are we equal. When I say like I bully them, it's not to make fun. I don't know, to in a bad way of this word. It's like they bully themselves. This is friendship for them. So when I do this, I'm putting myself in their place, and I want them to put themselves in my place when I need to. When I'm like Liz says, when we talk like real things, you're paying this fucking school, you're paying this fucking shit. Why are you here? Why are you doing this for you? And I don't know. I worked with vestibular, too, so for a few times, and I love when people say to me like I hate biology, and then I plan a class, and after this class, the child is like, "Whoa, this is nice. I never thought about it. I never thought in that way." And I don't want the students to love what they didn't. What I mean, if he doesn't love biology, it's not because of me. He will. But I mean, I like showing another ways of doing things, another ways of learning things, and to show them that they can be part of this process. Like Bea always said, like we have to call them for responsibility. You know, I don't know. I just thought of sharing this because every time I said I say people I worked with Ensino Fundamental 2, people are like, what? And I'm like, I actually like it. I like them.
Well, but that's like really horizontality is a big thing, right? When you say that you're bullying them, I don't think it's really bullying. I think it's like you're joking around, you're stooping to their level in the terms of that immature sense of humor they can have, right, towards each other. That like poking stuff, provocations in the sense, right? And I do think with teenagers and with everyone else, we should be very real. Like, hey, this is a challenge, this is a problem, this is the situation, this is how it is. Can't sugarcoat things and treat students like, oh, here's everything on a platter. If we're going to make them an active part of everything, then we need to include them even in that process of like, what do you like, what do you hate, let's work on things, like, help me out here. Like I said, I hit a wall. But yeah, teenagers suck. Sometimes some of them are cool, right? Thank you for sharing, people. Now let's go to the next hot seat. Who has a situation, a challenge, some trouble that they would like to share? A specific student that makes your skin crawl or something like that. Or something about social media. I don't know. Yes, Miss Rebecca?
Yeah, we talked about this a little in the class about teaching beginners. And I have this student, he's a beginner, and he struggles with pronunciation. And I mean, have you guys watched Friends? There is this episode with Joey and Phoebe. She's trying to teach French, and she says something like, the time. I don't know, I don't speak French, but it is something like, I'm saying the time, and the student is saying, blah. It's just the opposite. It's just the opposite. And I don't really know how to deal with this because I don't correct my students to have a native pronunciation because I think this is insane. I don't look for a native pronunciation. I don't care about a native pronunciation. I care about communication. But you need to have a level of pronunciation that people can understand you. This is the point. Like, people need to understand you. And I talked to him about listening on after the class, practicing your listening podcasts, movies, music, and everything. Apparently, he cares. This is the problem. Like, apparently he cares. When you see that the student doesn't care, it's quite easier because he'll just go like, okay, I wash my hands. He doesn't care. That's okay. I can do nothing. He doesn't care. But apparently he cares. And he says like, yes, I've been listening to some music. I've been watching movies. But when I say something, the pronunciation is quite the opposite. So I don't really know how to correct this student in a way that is not offensive, in a way that is not going to cause more traumas, because we know that some corrections can cause some traumas. So this is my struggle right now. How can I correct a student a pronunciation problem? How can I correct pronunciation in a way that is not is I mean, I don't want to traumatize my
In a
students.
way that's not oppressive,
Yeah,
right?
perfect. In a way that is not oppressive. Exactly this. This is what I want to listen from you guys.
Oh my God, that is so fair. As always, before I give any insights, I want to hear what you guys have to say about this trick, about this trick now, about how tricky this is, or what your approach is to correct your students like this. What's your approach on pronunciation versus, speak like a native? No one wants to Okay, yes, Paula?
Well, I don't have a student like this now, but I had one before. I totally feel you because it's very hard when we try to, because, well, sometimes I bring these differences of wrong pronunciation and how do we say accent. Sorry, I forgot for a second. But well, when I tell them, how do we say the color vermelho? And they tend to say head, and they say actually had is cabeça. So we have an R. We need to try to do this with our tongue and muscles and blah blah blah. And they try to, and they and most of them they kind of get it and start to pronounce in a better way. But sometimes it's not something just small like this is very very huge, and I had a student like this, and I used to not really correct him all the time. I used to help him and cheer him up, like, yes, go trying every day. Think about repeating. If you're walking on the street, if you're taking the bus, just repeat red, 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 or thank you, thought. Some last week I said I tried to help a student to pronounce the th of thought, or the words like this. Choose one. He chose thought. So I said, okay, try to, because he asked me for this help. He was really eager for learning and, well, pronouncing in the best way he could. But I wouldn't correct him all the time and make him feel like oppressed. But yeah, sometimes I think that we should try to help in this, because it's not only a matter of accent. There are some words that they could be mispronounced, and but yes, I guess it is. I don't know if I really helped you, but just would like to share.
No, I love listening to your perspective. It's always good to listen to other teachers, right? It's awesome. Michelle, what do you have to say about this?
I try to not correct my students that much. I only correct them when, for example, they are talking for 5 minutes or three, whatever, and they say the same word wrong 3 times. Then the most effective way that I see that it's working is, for example, oh, you mean going to the party, for example, I don't know. So I try to repeat the word that the person was trying to say. Oh, yes, teacher, the party. So, and I put the word in their vocabulary that they have the digital notebook on Google Doc. And then I put the vocabulary of the day. Oh, take a look at the vocabulary of the day so they can study after class and repeat, as Paulo said. It's basically that. It's more something that you kind of construct with your students. Oh, I prepare the vocabulary and maybe try to correct this way by asking them, oh, you mean this word? Okay. Just that.
Absolutely, and taking a hook on that, you could even be taking that vocabulary that is written down, right? If you notice there's words that maybe he's pronouncing in a way that make it hard to understand, write those words down, and then maybe at the end of class have the Google Doc and say, "Hey, here are some words that I noticed need a little bit more work." And then you could use Play Phrase Me, like Julia said, or Youglish. Their websites that play the word, and then or even Google Translate, for fuck's sake, right? Whatever. And then they could just be like repeating, record themselves saying the word and then listen, send you an audio saying the word. I don't know if you want to receive an audio of them saying words, but like maybe you don't, right? Maybe they can send themselves audios and they could do that own assessment, right? But another thing that I wanted to say also is like sometimes grammar in the brain takes some time to form, phonetics takes some time to form in a newly bilingual brain. So the way we speak Portuguese has wired our brain. The way we speak Spanish wires our brain. So if you're learning a new language, you're going to have to rewire your brain and build new connections that are capable of helping you produce that sound. So for some people, that's a process that requires a little bit more time because it's like their mother tongue is like deeply ingrained in everything in the way they produce. They pronounce everything in their new language, right? So sometimes that takes a little bit of TLC, time, love, and care. Yes, Lise?
Sorry, guys. No, I was gonna say the Google Translator. If you type how to pronounce, I don't know, world, and then it shows you the little. I don't know if you guys already seen this, like the little mouth. and like this you can also hear in slowly the pronunciation. I show that to a student today. I always show them this tool just for them to listen to it besides me, besides the teacher. So then it's like something else. I don't know. It's just that's it.
I love it, girls. There's really no wrong answers here because it's like you got to try whatever you can, whatever works. Talk to your student about strategies, right? In the notes that I send the group. While you guys are talking, I take notes in the chat of what I need to say so I don't forget. And in this case, I sent it before. But I wanted to talk about phonics. I am not a big phonics fan. A lot of people in the educational community are against phonics for a lot of reasons and blah, blah, blah. But I do think phonics can come in handy when it comes to teaching people that have a hard time with pronunciation. For those of you who are maybe not familiar with phonics, it's the way that people teach American kids how to read and write. So you learn the sounds of each letter, and then when you start by reading very simple books, very simple phrases with kids, obviously, and then you learn each phrase. So maybe you practice that magic E a little bit, like snake, bake, cake. And then there's, first you memorize that rule and then you memorize E and E together, E and A, O and U. So it's like creating that practice in class and talking about that, maybe even learning phonics explicitly with them and talking about each sound of each letter and the different combinations of letters and sounds so that they can have more assistance in creating those brain connections that are necessary to pronounce those words. Because it's totally different, right? If the word muita, for example, I always talk about the word muita. The word muita is very crazy because you don't say muita, you say muita. So if you're trying to learn Portuguese, it's like you're gonna say muita, 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 right? So then how do you explain that? You'd have to say, okay, if you have like, you know, how do you explain that? I don't even know how to even explain that, but because I don't even can't even think of other words that are like muita that you say muita, you know? So you see, it's like languages are so specific and so have so many combinations. So we gotta give our students the opportunity to really digest things. And that really that brings me to another part, which is like phonetic transcriptions. Some people are obsessed with phonetics in the sense of, those letters with the symbols and shit that are inverted. What the actual fuck me with all that shit. What the hell? What the living hell? I hate that stuff. I hate the symbols, and then they want to teach students that shit. It's like I already have enough. It's like teaching Bhaskara, there's no use. There's no use, and it's just stuff that they need to memorize. So what I want to say is, like, you want to say psychologist, you don't know how to say psychologist, psychologist. Eu mando assim, psychologist. The transcription in Portuguese, I think that is so good. That is so effective. Just fucking write the transcript as they would say it in Portuguese. And I think that works a lot sometimes. Like write the vocabulary and then write the fucking transcription in Portuguese right next to it and say, hey, practice this. Just fuck it. I ain't about that. The letters on the shit. No, no, no. Hell no. Does that help you in any way, Rebecca? Please share what
Yeah.
our contributions have
Yeah,
stricken in
a
you.
lot, really. When you're talking about English, I love English because it's real people, not only like the machine with Google. I do use Google, as Lee said. I think it's useful because you can really understand the mouth helps, and you can kind of Google does this work of writing the Portuguese way, so it helps a lot. So you understand. But I love English because you can see real people and you have plenty of videos, so it's easier. And also alphabet, this phonics alphabet, that pissed me off because I've taken a class about this. I didn't understand a thing. I was like, what the fuck's that? I don't understand this schwa sound. I don't understand this schwa sound. I don't get it. Really, I don't get it. I mean, okay, it's a simple sound. You don't really open your mouth. You don't close it. But my students, they don't care about this. I need to make it simple. So I love when I see your slides and you have a word like success, and then you write success like S-A-K. I love it because I see my students pronouncing the word in a not a correct way, but they understand how to do it. Because when we see success, we want to say success, or we want to say actually success. And
Mhm.
when my students, when they see like S-A-K, they say, oh, success. Okay, perfect. It really works. I love this. I love this. And also what Paula said about let's think of a word. Maybe you can practice your word after this word after the class. Let's think about thank you. Whatever you say obrigado, try to say thank you right after. Maybe it works, in your routine. So it was very useful. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Ah, I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad. And I super recommend looking into the phonics. Like, I really do. Like, this is a little example of phonics, which is different from the phonetics thing. But look, it's just like, just this, I think, is sometimes enough to help students, like to recognize the O and the A, what sound they make, the IGH, what sound it makes, and just practice that and have examples of it. Examples of other words like screw, shra, cha, gra, ghoul, that sort of thing. My dad used to tell me that when I was learning how to read, it seemed like someone was choking me because I would be like, okay, there's the word car. I would be like, her, car, So that's something that really helps. Phonics are really good, different from phonetics, which suck, right? So I don't know. In this case, I'm in favor of phonics. Liz Pereira, yes, please.
Yeah, just the way how Bia writes the words, how it sounds. Sometimes I ask my students, Rebecca, like, does it make sense to you? I also write how you pronounce the word, and they say, maybe I'll write this way. And then I tell them, yeah, write this way so you can actually remember the way you would remember it. So maybe give them like how do you think you will write like the pronunciation. Then it even like make the connection stronger to them.
Oh my god, yes. Oh my god, Liz, I'm so proud of you in this moment. Oh my god. Yes, absolutely. Like asking them, how would you write it? And then they're gonna say, oh, maybe I would write it like this. And then that's a chance for you to say, I think actually maybe this sound is more like, "Nga," you know? So that maybe gives you an opportunity to check how they are really listening to the word and how it truly should be pronounced. That is brilliant, Liz. I love that. Yes, Rebecca.
I had this one student. Usually, when I needed to write the sound of I would write just the letter A only. And then I asked that student, like, does it make sense? And she said, like, maybe you should use a circumflexo. And I was like, yeah, of
Oh.
course. It makes so much sense. And then now I use the circumflex when I saw your way of writing success, the circumflex was there. And I was like, see, it makes so much sense.
Oh my
And yeah,
god.
yes, sometimes, not sometimes, I think like most of the times our students teach us a lot of things, So now I use the circumflex a lot.
Yes, hell yeah. And that stuff is really tricky. I think I sometimes I write that phonetic translation, the Brazilian phonetic translation, and then my student is like, "Teacher, I don't agree with that. I think it should be this or that." And then my perspective of Portuguese changes also. Like in the beginning, I wrote success with a com tio. So I'd be like, success. And then I started reflecting on how A com tio is different than A com circunflexo because, like, ângulo to me sounds like maçã, maçângulo, but then it's not the same thing, It's just, oh my God, Portuguese is insane. So think about their brains are wired in Portuguese, and Portuguese is a very language, and then they have to wire their brains in English. It's gonna be a really tough thing for some people, especially. I don't know. I was gonna say especially if they don't consume a lot of things in English, but some people, I don't know what happens. They consume all the stuff in English, but still their pronunciation is just really bad. It's like, but at least he cares. I have had many students, they're normally men, that they don't care. They're pronouncing everything wrong. You're correcting them, you're helping them, but they don't give a shit that they're pronouncing things wrong. And then whatever, right? Okay. Like you said, you wash your hands. You wash your hands and cringe. Thank you for sharing, people. So who else has something they would like to share in the hot seat today? Yes, Miss Mia.
The thing I have, maybe there is no right or wrong answer, but still, I don't like to focus on grammar, but sometimes I need to, for example, prepositions. And I don't know, do you have a way to teach tricky things about grammar, like prepositions, passive and active voice, or something like that? 'Cause I don't know how to do without all filling the gaps. No, I don't want to do this way. Do you have any suggestions?
Mm, that is a really good question. Please, who has suggestions? What do you guys do to teach grammar in a way that doesn't suck ass?
I also want to know it. Sorry. Can't help.
Y'all want to know? Okay, who has something to say? Maybe who does? Who does? Nobody? Okay. Yes, Paula.
Well, I'd like to hear from you, of course, but well, what I always try to do is like, well, when it comes to prepositions, sometimes bring some images or very how, I don't know how to say actually, but a specific sentences that comes with uh the preposition, so the person can like, okay, remember this sentence. Uh, take it as a I don't know, something that is going to lead you when trying to remember in other situations. But I also bring some music if I remember a song with the preposition I'm teaching. So I try to not only using the filling of the gaps or something, fill the blanks or anything like this, but I don't really know if I'm in the right way. So bear please, Professor.
Like you said, like Michelle said, there's no right or wrong answer here. So I love if it's working for you. I love it. I love it. I can say what I do in my practice, and then maybe it could make sense in your practice, people. Well, the first thing I would say is the power of the notebook. The power of that Google Doc with two sides, one side with the mistake, another side with space for correction. Because then once a month, maybe once every 2 months, we have that session where we sit and we really digest the mistakes that the student has been making. So then they have a lot of in where it should be on, they have a lot of on where it should be in. So this is that moment to really talk about that. Oh, so they ask that question, they make that mistake, and then you ask the question, oh, do you have some trouble with this? Oh, this, or you explain the rule, you explain where they should use things, and ask them to take notes on the explanations that you're giving, or take notes on what they understood for them to write the correction of that word, right? And that's just something broad you can use with most mistakes in general. But if you want to practice and focus on special grammar structures, my way to do so is normally through something that is contextualized, something that is, questions or praxis. For example, a lot of my students have trouble with the there to be stuff. They say have instead of there to be. So I created that there to be class where they talk about everything that there is in their house. So talk about your office first. In my office, have a shelf. Have there is, teacher. There is. That's true. So we talk about there is. We talk about there are. We talk about there was. There were. There will be. I ask in your future home, what will there be in your dream house? No, 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 no. How do you imagine it? Okay, we did there to be. And then I noticed that in that there to be class, I noticed that a lot of students had troubles with prepositions, right? So then we did a specific activity where I was like, okay, I'm going to ask you. We talked about the prepositions in the sense of I showed the preposition. What is the translation, right? Where do we use this? Maybe talk about it briefly. And then I'm like, okay, where is your water bottle now? Ah, it's on the fridge. No, on the fridge? Really? It's on top of the fridge? Ah, teacher, no, it's inside. Okay, and where are your keys right now? Ah, my key is on my bag. Oh, it's on top of your bag. Oh no, teacher, it's in my bag. Where are your legs? My legs are, I don't know, in the floor. Oh, it's inside the floor. No, teacher, it's on the floor. So, you know, that kind of asking them practical questions of things. If it's like a phrasal verb or something, I can create a class that's just about questions with phrasal verbs. You can ask ChatGPT for help to do that if you want. You can also just look up some phrasal verbs and ask questions with them. So wake up. Wake up is a phrasal verb. What time do you wake up in the morning? And then there's a phrasal verb, pick up. How did you feel or when your mom picked you up from school, or who normally picked you up from school? Were you picked up from school or did you walk home alone? You know? So I try to contextualize it. But then there's also this thing that, yes, sometimes we need to focus on a specific grammar rule. Yes, sometimes we need to have a class about that thing specifically. But ultimately, every class is an opportunity to use and to fortify that structure. So sometimes we have this agony, this rush that we need to fix that grammar rule as if it were a brick in the wall, and that if that brick's not there, the rest is going to fall apart. But in reality, that's not the vibe. I've said before that language and grammar is more like a garden that's growing simultaneously and not really at the same speed. Each plant is in a speed according to how much they've been watered, you know? But it's growing and it's fortifying and solidifying gradually, imperfectly. But yes, everything is solidifying, at a certain rate. So I would, at every slide, maybe you'll notice that I use different verb tenses. In every slide, maybe I use different phrasal verbs. In every slide, I use rich grammar. In every slide, maybe I'm going to use something that relates to prepositions. If I see that my students have trouble with that. So, it's like every class you use a little bit, every class you work on it a little bit, so that over time, that's something that they had a lot of opportunities to really, develop repertoire and know how to use it. Does that make sense? Does it me? Tell me, what are you thinking while we're
Yeah,
while
I'm so sorry. I was taking notes while you were
no,
speaking.
please.
One side, one eye here, other there. But that's perfect explanation. I thought you would answer about the contextualized way of teaching. And it's sometimes that I try not to blame myself because every time, not every time, sometimes I have to make a lesson focus on grammar. And is not the way I like to teach, but I'm trying not to blame myself because I want to teach in a contextualized way, but sometimes we need to go in the traditional way a little. Really happens. It depends on the student as well. So a lot of reasons.
Yeah, we don't want to go back to old ways, right? But then, for example, if you really think that a person needs exercises on something, send them some exercises that can be corrected on their own that they could do online. Some kind of thing like on Agenda Webby, or that, is it called Perfect English? I hate the name of that website, but like Perfect English, it's called. And then there are a bunch of grammar exercises that they just fill in the things and they already like, so it's stuff that doesn't require your assistance or your correction, but just. And also, when we start a class, it's nice for us to say, people like to give feedback at the end. Sometimes I like in the beginning of the class to say, you know what, I've been noticing that you've been having a little bit of trouble with prepositions. So I'll be, I don't know, bringing your attention to that a little bit today. And then during the conversation, it could be like, you see, that's the thing that I was talking about. And then you could unpack it better. Or if I'm going to like, I had that, a lot of students that had a problem using S in the present, in the third person. So I created a class that was about professions, right? And then describing the professions. What does a chef do? A chef bakes, a chef cooks, right? And then before that class, I would be like, yo, today I brought a class, and it may seem silly because we're just talking about random ass professions, but there's an objective here. This is it, blah, blah, blah. And then leave the person aware of the fact that we're working on that grammar. So it's not just like, I brought this blindly listen to me and obey. It's like, hey, this is what I'm doing, so they could be aware of that learning process. Oh my God, people. I love these questions you guys had today. They were very good, very fair. And next week, we'll have a similar thing. So please collect your problems, collect your hot seat moments, because it will be our last session together. Oh my God. Can't believe it. But I am so thrilled to have you guys on this process. It has been awesome. So I can't wait for our next session already. Okay. Take care of yourselves. Mwah. Have a good night, people.
Scared.
Love
So
y'all.
much. Bye bye,
And not
girls.
scared yet.
Oh, no, me neither.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.